Muy bien. Good morning, Postmaster. That's right. I'm speaking to you specifically. My name is Robert, and I'm a broadcasting major at Pikes Peak State College. I got into broadcasting because I love the process of production. I love planning out scenes, setting up shots, and just planning my ass behind a big camera. I love post-production even more. That is, editing all my recorded clips together, adding special effects, and just seeing all my hard work into a beautifully finished product that I get to share with the world. So imagine my dismay when I discovered that radio broadcasting was a required part of my degree. It's broadcasting without my favorite part, the visual aspect. And what am I, 50 years old? Who listens to the radio anymore? I thought Spotify killed it years ago. So I decided to clump all my radio classes in one semester and just get it over with. Well, that was this last semester that just ended. Shockingly, I have a newfound respect for radio. I still think it's an outdated medium, and podcasts are definitely replacing the talk part of radio. But radio has a complexity to it that I never expected. I learned a lot studying it, and some of the lessons I took from it have been broadly applicable to other areas. And that's what I want to share with you today. Lessons from radio broadcasting that I believe could help improve our speeches, specifically the writing part of a speech. I have 3 tips for you today, so enough foreplay. Let's get into it. My college radio professor was A.J. Matthews. That man was ridiculously overqualified for what was a community college just a few years ago. In my first class with him, he told me to forget everything I learned from English class. Hold on. He told us this because when writing copy for radio, you're writing for the ear and not for the eye. What works well for essays and articles is horrible when spoken aloud. This is largely because over the radio, you can't go back and reread like you can when you're reading an essay. So, hold on, got this. So it's important that the radio copy must be easily understood and keep the audience's attention, which brings me to tip numero uno. Keep it simple and conversational. What do I mean by this? I'm sure at some point or another you've gone through the hell of writing an essay. When you are revising a draft, you whip out your thesaurus and you replace all your dumb, simpleton words with better and smarter sounding ones. Well, when writing for radio, you should do the opposite. Keep it as simple as possible. Use contractions, isn't, hasn't, wasn't, shouldn't. The theory behind this is that you don't actually use big words when talking to people, and that's the point. You want your speech to have a conversational tone, so it sounds, so it's immediately understandable and easily followed. When you're having easy flowing conversation with people, you don't have to repeat yourself. The added benefit is that you'll connect much better with your audience because you'll come off as personable. So, write like you speak. And of course, conversations don't waste words, which brings me to the second tip. Say what you're trying to say in as few words as possible. In radio broadcasting, we call this word economy. There's 2 main reasons that radio emphasizes word economy. The biggest being commercial airtime. Time spent rambling without getting the point across is seconds wasted that could be used to fill with advertisements. And that's just the second pertains to news delivered over the radio. And yes, some people still get their news from the radio. When writing a newscast to deliver on air, you consume information about a story and then completely toss the source material and you just write what you remember. The end result is only the most important details, and ultimately, that's all people care about. If they really wanted to dive into a story, they just look it up themselves. You may notice this process resembles what it's like to share a headline with someone over coffee. There's that conversational tone popping up again. A concise radio copy or speech is punchy and engaging. It's easily digestible and satisfying for the listener to hear. So you can make your speeches more effective by keeping word economy in mind. And with that, I unceremoniously transition the speech into my third tip. My industry type of a teacher would bang on one particular drum over and over again, and that drum was avoid the relative clause. Who here actually knows what a non-restrictive relative clause is? Nobody. Thank God I brought an example. The non-restrictive relative clause is a little side comment that gets tucked into the middle of a sentence. You can easily spot it by the commas that surround it, or if the sentence makes sense without it. For example, radio, which depends entirely on sound, forces you to think differently about clarity. On paper, this is a great and concise way to get extra information. But as I mentioned earlier, radio doesn't have a rewind button, and neither does your speech. The relative clause is confusing and can cause information overload. It forces you to stop and ruins your flow. You can fix this by adding more sentences, taking that extra information and giving it its own sentence. For example, radio depends entirely on sound. That forces you to think differently about clarity. So, avoid the relative clause and just use more sentences. All right, let's recap these 3 tips. Keep your words simple and your tone conversational. Word economy is king, and for the love of clarity, kill the relative clause. I went into last semester thinking, what am I, 50? And now here I am telling you to follow its lessons like gospel. Life is weird like that. But hey, if these tips help your next speech land cleaner, hit harder, or just help people forget they're sitting through a Toastmasters meeting at 7 in the morning, then maybe radio wasn't such a waste of time after all. And if nothing else, you got a new way to judge people's grammar at parties. Thanks for listening, not reading.